Today on the League of Young Inventors, we're going to be learning how to invent paper airplanes. For more projects, go to theyounginventors.org.
Hey, I'm Duncan from the League of Young Inventors, and today we're going to be learning about wedges. Wedges are a simple machine that do a big job, and they can be recognized by their slanted edges that end in a point. Wedges are usually used to cleave into things, which means to poke into things and push them apart, but they have countless roles in our modern world. You might not have known that knives use wedges, axes use wedges, pins use wedges, airplanes use wedges.
Whoa, hold on. You're telling me that airplanes use wedges?
Well, sure they do, buddy. I mean, they'd be a lot slower if they didn't.
I don't know if I believe you.
Okay, well, I guess we're just gonna have to convince you. Luckily enough, today we're gonna be learning exactly how wedges can affect the speed of an airplane.
Have you ever made a paper airplane? Most of us have made at least one at some point in time. Some paper airplanes fly really well, others not so much. So why do some paper airplanes fly so much better than others? It all has to do with a special shape that is also a simple machine, the wedge. The wedge is what we call a simple machine. It's a tool that increases the force of a push or pull, or it changes its direction to make work easier. A wedge has a triangular shape with a sharp point that makes it easy to push underneath or into to lift or separate things. An axe is a type of wedge. If you've ever seen someone using an axe to chop wood, you've seen a wedge in action. A downward swing of an axe pushes the wood apart and splits it. The pointy end of a needle is also a wedge. Imagine trying to poke through a tiny knit fabric with the flat end of a popsicle stick. The wedge shape of a needle does a much better job at separating the woven threads. Here on the left, you can see a wedge easily lifting a box with a heavy pot of pens on top of it. And on the right, you can see the same wedge making the work of pushing two heavy boxes apart much easier. Wedges are really great at pushing things out of the way, like this plow train. Look at the snow fly off its sides. The wedge shape cuts through even really deep snow. Wedges are even good at cutting through things we can't see, like air. Which of these paper shapes do you think will stand up better to wind created by a fan? The square-shaped tower has a flat side that catches the airstream as it blows onto it. The paper isn't heavy enough to withstand the force of the air, so the square-shaped tower falls over. But the triangle-shaped tower has a pointy side that is able to cut through and separate the stream of air rushing toward it. This makes the wedge really useful for things that need to move through air as well, like paper airplanes. In this session, we will be making and testing two different paper airplane designs to see which flies farther. And to test our planes, we're also going to build a super cool plane launcher. Now, why do we need a plane launcher? When we test our paper airplanes, we want to make sure that we're launching them with the same amount of force each time. It's almost impossible to throw a paper airplane exactly the same way every single time, unless you're like a robot. But we can make sure to use the launcher the same way each time we launch an airplane. That way, we know we're pushing the airplane with the same amount of force each time we test. And that means that our tests will be more accurate. Are you ready to start? Let's get going. Here are the materials you'll need to build your paper airplanes and your launcher. You can press pause while you get your materials ready. You will need 2 sheets of printer paper or thin paper, 1 sharpened pencil or skewer, 1 small piece of cardboard, 1 pair of scissors, 2 paper clips, 1 roll of tape, masking tape is best, but any tape will do, and 1 rubber band, medium sized. If you can't find wild rubber band, store-bought rubber band is fine. So let's get started on plane number 1. First, you're going to fold your paper exactly in half, the long way, and then crease the fold by pressing down while you smooth your fingers over the fold.
Next up, take one corner of the paper and fold that corner down so that the top of that corner meets the line of the fold you just made. Do the same thing with the other corner. Then, refold your airplane down the middle so that the corners are hidden inside. Finally, take one side of your paper airplane and fold the top edge so that it meets the bottom edge and crease that fold. Now do the same thing on the other side. Now, congratulations, give yourself a pat on the back, give yourself a high five. You've created a paper airplane. If you're still working on it, no stress. You can pause right here, take a little break, stretch your legs, and when you're finished with your paper airplane, unpause and we'll get on our way. Plane number 2, we're coming for you! So to fold your second plane, you start just like you did with the first plane, by folding your paper exactly in half and creasing that fold. Then, bring down the corners so the top edges of the paper airplane meet the middle, right where that first fold line is, and crease the corner folds. Okay, you're doing a great job. Now, you're going to fold each side in one more time. This is where it gets tricky. So the edges meet the middle. Take a look at this. You're taking the outer edge and you're meeting the middle. You're going to crease that. And now you're going to refold down the middle again. So you're hiding those folded bits inside. Now take one side of the folded top edge so that it meets the bottom edge and crease. Do the same thing for the other side. And there you have it. Starts off from a regular plane to something we can't explain. Well, we can explain it. We just explained it. Here you go. If you're still working on it, pause right now. Here are the steps in detail, and we'll get moving in just a second. You see, to make this plane real hip, we've got to add the paper clip. So, the way that we do this is we're going to take the paper clip and bend it so that the bigger part is turned out. Your paper clip should look like this one. Next, take a sharp pencil or skewer and carefully make a small hole on the center fold line of your airplane, about 3 inches from the front. Then, insert your paper clip into the hole so that one end curves out from the bottom. The end of the hook should point toward the back of the airplane. Finally, place a piece of tape over the paper clip on the inside of your airplane. Oh, and on the outside. Your paper clips should be securely fastened with tape on both sides of the plane, so that hook doesn't move. Once you've done this with one plane, go ahead and do it with the next one. This will be how you latch in your launcher. Now, you can pause here if you're still working on it, and we will wait here for you patiently. Ooh, it's time to make our launcher, not luncher. Okay, to do this, grab a piece of cardboard and make a strip that is about 2 inches wide and 5 inches long. I told you that it wasn't a luncher. This isn't a cooking show. Great, so you've got your strip, you've got your rubber band. So you're going to fold your strip in half, just like that. Next step, put your rubber band so that it lands right in the crease of your folded piece of cardboard. There you go. Now we're going to add some tape to make sure this rubber band doesn't fall off. So take some tape and secure the open end of your strip at the bottom. You're going to need about 2 pieces. So do this on either side. Do not tape the rubber band. Don't tape the rubber band, just the cardboard. Great. Now, pause while your claws are still tinkering around with this launcher. And when you're ready, unpause, and we're going to keep going on to the next step. Now it's time to test it. Take your first airplane and hook it to the paper clip over the rubber band. Okay, then you get the deal. So hold up your launcher, pull back your airplane, and let go. Try to make sure that you launch your airplane as straight as possible. Then do the same thing with your second airplane. For the second test, make sure you stand in the same place and pull back the second airplane just as much as you pulled back the first one. No more, no less. Use a piece of tape or an object to mark where your paper airplanes land. Now test each airplane twice in a row to see if you get the same results. Then compare your results to see how far your paper airplanes fly. Which one do you think is going to go farther, and why? Pause here while you're testing. So, what happened? Chances are your first plane didn't fly as fast or go as far. That's because the nose and the general shape of the first plane is fairly flat. The pointy wedge design on your second plane helped to cut through the air, making it go faster and farther. That's why we see the wedge shape used so often in planes. Their pointy ends help them push through and move aside air with much less force than it would take with a straight, flat front. It's also why boats have pointy ends. The wedge design helps them push through and move water around them. The wedge design helps a plane deal with the force of air that pushes against the airplane as it flies. This force is called drag, and it's a real drag. If you've ever ridden a bike or run into the wind on a very windy day, you've probably felt a lot of air pushing against you. That's drag. And airplanes have to deal with a lot of it. This is a video of the first airplane that ever flew with people inside of it, invented by the Wright brothers. When inventors started making airplanes, everyone was focused on how they would actually get the plane up in the air. But once people figured that out, they started improving their designs to make airplanes fly better, longer, and faster. Today, airplanes have a more streamlined shape. A modern airplane uses a wedge shape to cut through the air, reducing drag so that the plane flies much more easily and uses less fuel. A simple machine we've been using for thousands of years has the power to make our airplanes fly more efficiently. It's pretty crazy. This experimental design of a plane not only uses a wedge shape on its nose, but also on its wingspan. This allows for it to cut through even more air. Now, you know a bit more about how a paper airplane's shape helps it to fly further and faster. But you don't have to stop here. Experiment with your designs and use your launcher to test them. You can create a whole fleet of paper airplanes that fly in all sorts of different ways.
See, I told you that airplanes used wedges. If you take a look at my plane, you'll see that there's a wedge not only in the wingspan, but also in the nose of the plane. I mean, what do you have to say to that?
I'd say that despite the fact that you've convinced me, I still don't see your point.
Okay, well, the point's right there.
Really? After this whole thing, that's the joke you want to end on? That one.
Well, thank you for inventing with us, and we'll see you again next time.